listening to the TyePod, hosted by your friendly neighborhood PhD.
To deal with a difficult or challenging day, I try to keep my sense of humor sharp, and I try to reach out to other people with disabilities and friends with and without disabilities that know my sense of humor and know the best ways to cheer me up. And I also try to keep in perspective that even though disability has challenged me and taken a lot of things away from me, it's also given me a lot. And that includes the opportunity to meet people that I don't think I ever would have met, and to have empathy for things that I don't think I would even notice if I wasn't disabled.
Hi, I'm Keris. I'm 24 years old and I live in Cardiff in Wales. I have limb-girdle muscular dystrophy type 2I. Thank you so much to Ty for inviting me. This is a really exciting episode and here are my answers to the questions. So the first question about podcast influencing my experience in the disability community, I would say that starting my own podcast, Unbalanced, was really the beginning of being a part of the disability community. Before then, I didn't really know anyone else with the same condition as me or that was my age with a disability, and starting a podcast myself really opened myself up to the rest of the community, and also so many other amazing podcasts that are about just the challenges that we all face as young adults, but also with that extra barrier of having a disability as well. I've learned so much through listening to other people share their stories about their different conditions or life experiences, and it's just really kind of widened my perspectives on life in general. And I think starting my own podcast has really helped me connect with other people with not only the same condition as me, but lots of other conditions. And it really does mean that we are all in the same boat. We are all going through the same things. And it's just so nice to be able to lean on each other for support and advice, and to just know that we're not in this alone. We're all in this together. My answer to the second question about how I get through bad days, I think the thing that helps me get through bad days is to have that moment, grieve or wallow in that pain that you're in, have a cry. I think that's really important, and not to be in denial about it. But the way I go through life is to just stay as positive as I can, because there's always so much goodness in life, even if you can't see it right there and then, but there's always something to be grateful for in this life. And even though a lot of us have some terrible conditions, and these conditions will be with us for life, and I have LGMD, which means that it's a progressive condition, I will lose a lot of things in life. So there will be a lot of times that I'll be upset and grieving my past, but there will always be things to be grateful for in life, and life is still worth living. There's a lot of good qualities in life still to be had. So I think that would be my main thing, is to just focus on the good things always, and also reach out to someone. I think a problem shared is a problem halved, which means that as soon as you open up to someone else about how you're feeling, you're going to feel a little bit better. They're in it with you and they can help you, and I think that's just so much better than bottling it up, because the chances are either someone will be able to help you or will be able to relate to you on it. And yeah, that's what I love about this community, is that we're all in this together.
Hi everyone, my name is Annie Heathcote, and I'm super excited to be a part of this Thai podcast mega episode. Okay, so we'll start with the first question. How have podcasts helped or influenced you and your experience with disability? So for me, I always try and find disability representation wherever I can find it. And one of those places is podcasts. And I always like to hear their real life experiences, how they navigate life, what resources they find, or treatments that they do, or mobility aids that they use. And it really helps me feel like I'm not alone and I feel seen and a part of this beautiful disability community that we have. Question 2. How do you handle bad days? Well, I do a lot of self-care. For one, I start with a hot beverage in the morning, whether that's hot chocolate or matcha. I love both. And I take time to seek God, read my Bible, pray, do a devotional. It all helps center my spirituality and feel closer to God. And I take time to process emotions. I really dig deep and feel like and realize and I'm aware of how I'm feeling and why do I feel that way and what experience maybe could have led to this. And I process and grieve those experiences. And sometimes, as we all know, the weight of this world is so great that we have to take time for mental health, for self-care. And I have a lot of mental health days because my life is really, really hard. And I know your life is too. And so take those times, take those breaks, have rest. You don't have to prove yourself. You're worthy and you are enough as is. And God makes us that way, and He created us in His image. And something else I like to do is I'll phone a friend, I'll talk to a mentor, I'll talk to my therapist. I like to spend time outside and in nature and just feel the sunshine on my face. It warms me up too. And just feel the cool breeze and the fresh air. It just really helps ground my body and make me feel just better in general. I like to cuddle with my cute cat and receive hugs from friends with safe human contact. And they're there for me and they provide comfort and a shoulder to cry on when I need that. So those are some things I do to help me on my bad days. I'm so happy to share this with all of you. Thank you.
How have podcasts helped me? I'd say finding out vital information that you wouldn't find anywhere else from the community itself and those suffering. You know, it almost makes you not feel alone, and you know, there's nothing worse than not finding others that can relate to our own problems and struggles. So yeah, I find through podcasts you can relate to a lot of people on there, and like I said, you know, certain equipment and help that's out there isn't highlighted. So through these podcasts you find out so much. The way I handle bad days is kind of being kinder on yourself. It's so important because that's something that we always miss. You know, we put the most pressure on ourselves, and taking time out is something that is so important. You know, I kind of live by the day by day now, and that's something I've learned, because if I look back, it's always full of regret. If I look forward, it's often faced with disappointment. So living in the day and trusting the process is something that I found has helped me. Also picking up previous hobbies, going out for a stroll, you know, out in nature, and kind of people watching, and just clearing the mind is something I found is helpful. And also things like taking time out for you. It's okay to take time out, because I found that when I don't in the past, it's kind of built up, and that's when, you know, later on it's harder to manage, and then it becomes a much tougher battle to face later on. So, you know, taking those little breaks and time outs and saying no to tasks and things is okay, because that way you kind of get to charge those batteries quicker, if that makes sense. Because otherwise, you know, once they're depleted, we all know it takes us a lot longer to basically charge back up again, you know, and that's important. And also, you know, the one thing I'd sort of say is be proud and that of how far you've come. You know, not everyone faces the battles we do. So yeah, being kinder on ourselves and taking self-pride is something I find is important.
Podcasts have actually been such a gift in my journey with blindness and chronic illness. What I really love most is the intimacy of the medium. It feels like you're being invited into someone's living room, hearing not just their story, but also their tone, their pauses, their emotions. And for me, that's really powerful because disability often feels isolating. Listening to others share their experiences, whether it's navigating accessibility, reimagining identity, or just laughing about the daily quirks of life, reminds me I'm not alone. Podcasts have also helped me see possibility. When I hear someone thriving in advocacy, creativity, or entrepreneurship while living with a disability, it sparks ideas for my own path. And now, as a blind storyteller myself, I come to realize that podcasts aren't just entertainment. They're advocacy tools. They break down misconceptions, amplify voices that are often overlooked, and create this bridge between communities. And they've influenced me to not only consume stories, but to share mine, to step into the mic and remind the world that disability is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a different kind of story. Bad days are part of my reality, both with chronic illness and with vision loss. And I've really learned to meet them with a mix of honesty and grace. Sometimes handling a bad day means allowing myself to rest, to say, today I don't have to be productive. Today I just have to be. And I've stopped seeing rest as weakness. Instead, I view it as a form of resilience because it's what allows me to rise again. Other times it's about reaching for the small things that ground me, making a great cup of coffee, stepping into my garden, listening to the birds, or just calling a friend who understands without me having to explain. And I'll be honest, there are days I still feel frustration, grief, and sadness. But I remind myself that those emotions aren't permanent, and I give myself space to pass through them instead of letting them define me. On the other side, there's always that flicker of light and hope and gratitude and even laughter. So how do I handle bad days? I handle them imperfectly, but with compassion. I choose to believe that every bad day is just a page in the book and not the whole story.
Podcasts help me with my chronic illness by giving me something to listen to. A few years ago, I fell and I developed post-concussion syndrome that never got better, and so it just turned into a migraine. And without a preventative migraine medication, I have 24/7 migraine. It doesn't stop without my medication. And so I can no longer listen to music. I can listen to it for very short periods, but not very loud. If it's especially an hour and a half of music, even on like level 3, I can't tolerate it. I have a horrible, horrible headache. So I listen to podcasts and they keep my brain happy. They don't typically hurt. I can listen to them nonstop, and they have been very, very helpful for me. Podcasts have influenced me as well as a rare disease advocate. I write a lot, but with the grief of losing my mom, writing has become a bit harder for me to do, especially the first year after losing my mom. And so participating in podcasts I found easier. It was less stressful. It was less brain power in a way of having to sit down and write. I could just talk and have a conversation and share life with another person. And so it's influenced me in that way, in my advocacy as well. And how I handle bad days, it depends on how bad of a day it is. I have different types of bad days based off of different health issues. So if I'm having a short bowel syndrome flare, I will try to take medication to help with it. If that's not working, or if it's too severe really for medication to help. So I have 2 different levels of medication I can take, and depending if it's very bad flare, that means I'm going to the bathroom every 30 seconds. And so in those type of cases, I am trying to sit up or be propped up a bit, and I'm not eating or drinking. I am just trying to get through the flare and trying to sleep through it, really, to get through it the fastest. If I'm having a partial blockage, intestinal blockage, depending on the pain, I have different protocols for that I follow. It's really, for me, handling a bad day is knowing my body well enough to the point that I know which protocol I need to follow to get through the day the best. That's always going to involve some resting at some point, even if I'm having a bad day, but I'm able to do most of the things that I need to do until I can get home and I can rest. It's really just, for me, knowing my body well enough to know what I can tolerate and for how long and what it's needing to get through it. It's something that I have had to learn over a long time, as well as how my body has changed periodically throughout the years too, as different symptoms have increased or medications may not be as effective as they were. So it's listening and learning, and also giving myself grace to get through the day, taking that break, getting that rest, putting other things aside, allowing myself to do that, and for my mental health as well as my physical health. I would say that's how I handle bad days.
Hi everyone, this is Brad from My Becker Story, and the question I'm going to answer today is, how have podcasts influenced you or helped you through your disability or chronic illness? For me, the biggest thing for me that the podcasts do is it helps me get to know other people's stories. It gets me to see that we have a lot in common. So it helps me feel less alone, and it just does so much for our community. It helps connect us, and there's so many podcasts out there these days, so there's so many opportunities to learn more about each other and feel more supported. So the biggest thing that podcasts have done for me is just giving me support, and it keeps me motivated to keep going. Now the next question is, how do we handle bad days? Long time ago I started referring to my bad days as weekdays. That's a day when I just I could be dropping things constantly, almost having a fall, and just feeling weak all over. And those bad days, sometimes the only option is to just sit back, relax, do what you have to do, and whatever you have to do, we can't feel guilty about it, because we do have those bad days, and sometimes they're bad physical days, and sometimes there's days where, we might suffer from anxiety. I know I have plenty of times and still do these days, and sometimes the only thing I can do is push through, or, when I'm having anxiety, I will give someone a call, or, try and remind myself that everything's okay, because, living with a disability doesn't mean that we're always going to have good days. We'll obviously have bad days and good days, but on the bad days, I just try and focus on the positives, maybe, look to something that's upcoming or what's happening the next day, just giving me something to look forward to. So the best way I deal with bad days is just I either have to take it easy or just try and keep my mind, in a positive fashion, so that I don't, stay too long in the negative, because again, every moment passes, and even though we might be having a bad day, tomorrow might be a good day.